Times. Many thanks for joining us. My name is Hero Daniels, and we have a great show for you today. It's been a very eventful week, from northern governors and some senators kicking against President Tinubu's tax reforms to the national grid collapsing again for the 10th time this year. That's more times than my past relationships collapsed in my entire adult life. TCN, you need to do better. Also, 7 Nigerian artists were nominated for the Grammys, and Donald Trump won the U.S. elections, which is what we'll be talking about today. The U.S. elections, lessons for Nigeria's electoral process. And with me in the studio to discuss this, I have a public policy enthusiast in the person of Aniken Joseph, and also a social commentator, Ifeanyi Okoye. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice.
Okay, I'm going to start with you, Ifeanyi. What are your thoughts on the just concluded United States presidential elections?
As a citizen of Nigeria, I would say we don't really, I myself, I don't really have much interest. But my own take is for global peace. Somebody who is inclined with global peace that could settle issues as regard what is happening in the Middle East, because presently we have two wars going on, the Ukraine and the Russia war as a result of NATO differences. Then coming to the Middle East, the Israel, the Gaza, the Hamas, and the Iran. So those are issues that we look at. But presently I don't really have an issue, because if you look at Trump, his first term from 2016 to 2020, he was never showed any interest in African affairs. That was just the truth. He was so much particular about the American people, even though the Americans see him as somebody, oh, that is a women abuser, he's a misogynist, and oh, he doesn't believe in human equality. That is, so I believe that Americans should take care of their problem. Then African leaders should forge ahead, because Trump will tell you American first. But an average Nigerian is always our dream to aspire to visit the US.
Yes.
But after there, what does it end? Where does it end there? Because we have leaders who need to come back and look home inward and fix our own problems.
True. So what we're also trying to focus on in the course of this conversation is what Nigeria can learn from the electoral process. And we're going to talk about the immigration issues, because I think Trump is very strict on immigration. So for a lot of people that are happy that, oh, Trump won the elections, they also better make sure that they come right if they want to ever visit the United States of America. So I'm going to sample your opinion right now, Aniken. What are your general thoughts on the electoral process? You know, was it free and fair? Do you think there was a bit of external influence from any other country, you know, Russia? Because there's so many interests. You know, American elections, there's a lot of global interest. So do you think it was free and fair? What do you think of the system? What are your thoughts?
Concerning the elections, it was clear that Americans were the biggest influence over the American elections. To suggest that there were external influences that could significantly affect the outcome is something that had been debunked several years ago, from 2016, 2017, 2018, when it was really high on the agenda in the news. In terms of what we can learn, the first thing I would like to point out is that people typically do what they can. And what we see is that the Americans have demonstrated over time that they can conduct elections. And we, on the other side, we have demonstrated that we cannot. So there is a capacity conversation that we must have. There is a gap. We like to think that the people who are responsible for elections here have what it takes to do it. But if we're honest with ourselves, we need to take a look at the results in the last few years. And, you know, if you put 2 and 2 together, you can conclude conveniently that we do not have the capacity, or at least those of us who are managing election around this country at the moment have not demonstrated the capacity to deliver competently on elections that are devoid of really basic scandals. Thank you.
Okay, so now, talking about, I want us to take this step by step. So we're going to start with the electoral method. Comparing the American system, you know, they do the electoral college, and if you have 270 votes, you'll be able to win, you know, as opposed to like the popular vote. So even if you had the popular votes, and I think that happened during Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, where Hillary Clinton had the popular vote, but she failed to win the electoral college. Yeah, so correct. Is this something you think that we can adopt here? Now, over here, our law says that a candidate must have at least 25%, I believe, in two-thirds of the nation, you know. So what do you think we can sort of adopt? Or do you think our system works for us? Will you take that question, Ifeanyi?
Well, I'll disagree with him on one issue, where he said we don't have the capacity to conduct such elections. The people who conducted Americans' elections, they are not spirits. Their system are not perfect. But the people, they have a system that is laid down, that everybody who is coming is being checkmated. But here, the people, if you send people in America, you bring them to conduct election here, they'll be overwhelmed. Because the people, especially the state actors and the electorate, they are not even willing to do the right thing. So those are some of the issues.
What do you mean they are not willing to do the right thing? You said the electorates are not willing to do the right thing. Can you throw more light on that?
A politician comes today, he issues money to electorate. It is the onus of the electorate to decide, will they sell their conscience or to vote rightly. That's where I am. Then back to your...
No, there are lots of, before we get to that, there are lots of conversations, especially with the last elections, where a lot of people felt that, you know, the votes were manipulated, it wasn't properly counted. Electorates stood under the sun, under the rain, and they wanted to make sure that, yes, their votes were counted. And, you know, there were several conversations around eventually when the results came out from INEC, what was seen in the polling booths did not reflect what was counted.
That's where the state actors, I say the state actors come to play. Who are your state actors? Your politicians, your security agencies, the electoral umpire. At least they have to hold a form of a little integrity to the people who are governed. Whereby you tell us A, you do B as state actors, then it calls in question. Then we are not ready to evolve because our process of democracy is tailored towards the U.S.
Anikan, what are your thoughts on this?
I think, although he started by saying he disagrees, he came back to agree with me because
I said they are not spirits. The people who did the U.S. elections.
But
I said if you bring them here, they will be overwhelmed.
That is a point.
We don't have a system.
That is a point of agreement, my brother. The truth is, the system that we have. Remember that our electoral empire are considered independent. Even in their name, they are considered independent, which suggests that they can take specific steps, integrated steps, to achieve specific outcomes that everybody will look at the process and say, it is fair. And that is a competency issue. If you give me 300 billion naira to conduct elections, and I've conducted it, you know, in the next 6 years, we're going to have 30 years of consecutive democracy in this country. So we have enough institutional memory to improve our elections moving forward. But every time we talk about elections, it looks like, you know, we are taking baby steps even after 30 years. So when I say you agree with me, it is consistent with my position that if people had the know-how in terms of character competency, they would at least put a level of resistance to the so-called political players. And that is my opinion.
Okay, so can we now talk about the role that the judiciary plays? Now, the INEC itself is very independent. The three arms of government, executive, judiciary, legislation, is supposed to be independent.
Supposed, yes.
There have been conversations around how independent is the judiciary when the president has the power to appoint the Chief Justice of the nation.
Correct.
You know, so in America, judges are appointed for life. You know, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you think we can learn?
Justice is a very sensitive thing, and we must recognize immediately that the people we're talking about are human like us. They are affected by everything that affects us, and they are called to a higher moral compass. The responsibility of a judge is to experience everything that every Nigerian is experiencing, but to deny that experience and execute a higher standard. And when you're calling people to do that, there now has to be scrutiny on people's character and antecedents. Where are they coming from? What history do they come with? What character baggage exists that we can recognize and adjust ourselves for? And if we do not really pay attention to people's history, then we shouldn't be surprised when they do something because we didn't pay enough attention to the consistent position they had taken in the past as far as the law is concerned.
Okay. I'm going to throw this question to you, Ifeanyi. If there's one thing we can all agree on, is the fact that America's election was very successful digitally. Now, do you think it's possible for us to really, really make sure that our elections are playing on that digital level? You know, we've had the efforts in the last election with the BVAs, but you see that, okay, some polling units, they say the BVA machines are not working, and by the time the results come out, you see different results, 15 kinds of results from Lagos State, you know, another set of results from Ogun State, and it doesn't tally. But the American elections, everything tallied, everything came in together. So how can we sort of consolidate on the first step of even introducing the BVAs and all of the technological advancements and innovation that the INEC has brought? How can we make it efficient? Because from the last election, it doesn't seem it was.
The American system is not 100% perfect. We witnessed where they were burning off ballot, we like say, polling centers in Washington and some other places. And you also saw the issue of maybe some people claim that the systems where they vote, the online voting was being manipulated. But true to its cause, no elections.
What was the source of this information?
No, this information, we are on the new media. Whereby in Washington, some places were burned, and they accused it on Trump supporters, which Biden called them, they are all garbaged. Make your findings. They are there. So American system are not 100% perfect, but and I would like to say also, no elections are 100% perfect, because the only thing you improve as time goes on. But ours, we have refused to improve. We always admire the American the model of democracy.
Yeah, okay, so I think I need to make this very clear. We're not saying that the elections were 100% accurate and efficient, you know, but from what you just described, you know, and all of the cases you mentioned,
see people without voters ID in America coming to vote.
Of course, there is no democracy that doesn't have election issues. But we're trying to compare the American voting system versus the Nigerian voting system. Can we agree that with the facts that is before us, the American voting system seems to be more efficient than the Nigerian voting system?
Of course, it's very efficient.
And all we're doing is we're not trying to compare. We're really trying to see what can we emulate, what are the good things that we can pick up from such a democracy so that we can make ours better.
I think one thing is, first and foremost, the average American is very patriotic, irrespective of the divide they fall. That's why you see them American first, you see the American dreams, and you see them believing in their country before any other thing. The country comes first. And that's that passion that burns American to do the right thing, because they know it is the long term that counts, not the short term. But coming down to Nigeria, we've lost, virtually most people who have lost patriotism in the process, not just the process, but the country. So those are some of the challenging issues.
Anike, what are your thoughts?
I think that when you're trying to solve a problem, the concept of human-centered design has to be considered. Now, we are not America. However, elections are elections, and the principles that guide elections are accountability. So if we say that there are 10 million votes, we should be able to say 3 hours later that there's 40% of votes not counted, isn't it? And that's what gave the American public a level of comfort that this process made sense. In our system, we cannot account for votes, you know, and when we do, they are not consistent with what people thought. For instance, how many people were registered voters, you know, how many votes were voided votes, you know, and then by the time the physical evidence of votes are coming up, you're seeing, you know, mutilated documents here and there. So you can look at the whole value chain for us, and you can see the lack of character, which is what I talked about, capacity, our capacity at the moment. And I use our in quotes because INEC represents us. If INEC can't do it, it means we can't do it. And so we need to take steps to look at this and say, why does it happen? For instance, typically, elections are supposed to start early. The first obstacle to elections are materials arriving on time. There's a whole logistics behind it. Why can't we figure that out? You know, so these are things that we need to look at and say, they are not sophisticated issues, they are really human issues. And it is a human issue because it's just an issue of imagination, bringing forward thinking to the table and having disciplined execution across board. And if we bring these to the table, we can see these things without any significant improvement in budget.
You know, even in the American elections, there's what we call the early voting.
Correct.
And it's such an efficient system that it still counts, and it's not being manipulated, at least to the best of the public's knowledge, you know, is this something you think we can adopt, or do you think that our democracy or our organization as an independent National Electoral Commission, I'm trying to use your word now, do you think we're not yet there? You know, why can't we do early voting?
I have an interesting theory on this. The question is, what are we trying to achieve? Once you define what you're trying to achieve, you will take practical steps to achieve it. So most people complain about integrity of elections. So what is a polling unit? What makes a polling unit conducive for typical or safe elections to occur? We've not been able to define this. Because a polling unit in, let's say, Gwagwa in Kaduna is different from a polling unit in Lekki Phase 1. And that level of inconsistency is a recipe for disaster. Once we define what a polling unit is, and we're able to put in some of the things that make it safe, secure, and reasonably consistent across board, then we can begin to, you know, walk it back. But right now, we cannot even define what a polling unit is.
All right. If every election, you know, there's always a side of the divide that loses and a side of the divide that wins. And there's no election that is not devoid of issues. Obviously, the current president, President Biden, has said that he's going to ensure that the transition is smooth. It means that the Democrats have agreed that, yes, the elections were fair enough for us to concede defeat, and the institution is strong. Absolutely. Now, the last elections that we had, you know, the cases ended up in courts, lots of cases. And it seems like the favorite word is go to court. If you have an issue with the elections, go to court. But there's also a transparency and a trust issue with the judiciary. So what do you think we can do to make sure that election issues are fairly judged and resolved?
One, the undue influence of the state actors in the judiciary is a problem. And maybe we should sit down, not for Nigeria, and decide, should the civil society or interest groups, stakeholders be involved in the process of nomination of these judges, and take it out, completely out of the executive. When I say the executive, at the state level, the governors, at the presidency, the president. So by doing that, there will be some sanity, because most of the judges are in, most of the governors pocket the judiciary. Not to talk of a former governor who is a minister now. He comes out every day and boasts and tell you that most of the governors is bigger than them. And he has virtually all the judges in his pocket. Presently, his wife is a serving appeal court governor, appeal court judge. So it's potent danger for the democracy. And those are the challenges. Without separating those things, putting round hole and round hole in round peg in round hole, we'll still remain where we are. Okay,
Anike, very quickly, we just witnessed an election in Edo State. Another one is happening on Ondo, and the INEC, they're using these elections to show us that they can be better. So it's almost like this is a preparation leading up to 2027. First, your analysis on the Edo State election, your hopes for the Ondo State election and 2027.
Edo State election was quite interesting in my opinion. You know, if you look at the preconditions for peaceful elections, you could comfortably predict that it was going to be quite problematic. So you have an incumbent that has high stake in who was going to succeed him. And then you have a strong opposition that has some very strong federal influence. And this was a clash of resources. So whether it's financial resources or in terms of raw power resource. And in a mix like that, you know, loyalties are going to be tested, especially from an independent body called INEC. So at the state level, there's pressure. At the federal level, there's pressure. And whoever has enough sophistication to manage that pressure, you know, will begin to deliver. And then there's a third force that had quite a showing in Labour Party in the previous general elections, that people imagined that the momentum from the previous party would have followed through. But results indicated that it didn't even exist as a third force. You know, so you're going to see how do you make empirical sense of things like that. But if I wanted to go in terms of performance of the independent National Electoral Commission, I'll be looking at things around the election materials arrive on time. You know, did election begin on time? Did we have enough security in the polling unit to ensure that people were free to exercise their franchise.
Yeah.
You know, how long did it take after elections for votes to be counted? And, you know, did people seem to agree with the thing overall? And sadly, the answer is a no to that.
All right, the answer is a no. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Thank you so very much, Ifeanyi. Thank you very much, Anike. And yes, Rubbin Mind continues after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Rubbin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the American elections versus the Nigerian election. What are the lessons that we can, learn, the positive takeaways from the just concluded U.S. elections? And right now, we want to talk about Project Nigeria. Now, when you hear of the country Nigeria, what comes to your mind? Do you think of the most populous black nation in the world, filled with lots of talents, or do you have negative stereotypes in your head? If you think of Nigeria as a company, just imagine it for 1 minute. If Nigeria was a company, how is it being run? How marketable is the product Nigeria? Let's look at this country from a brand perspective. And that leads me to Brand Nigeria Crisis, the cost of misaligned optics. In the studio to discuss Brand Nigeria is the creative director of The Masses, Ayo Ishola. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a player, just like I say.
I like how happy you are, and I like your demeanor. That is how Nigeria should be reflected.
Yes, but there's a bit of some anger within. But let's just go, because this topic is really particular to me, because you find out that you have a lot of people who are putting in the work, the craft, the hours, the shifts. They are spending their blood, sweat, and tears in making sure that their optics, the way people see them, their perception is perfect. However, the major container, the omnibus container that carries, whether we like it or not, no matter how far we want to run away from Nigeria, we are still Nigeria. So if the country isn't looking good, we might be looking good individually, but it will get to some point where we feel that little bit of drawback, and we are like, I only wish. Okay,
so let's attack it directly. What are the issues with the brand Nigeria?
Okay, so before we even talk about brand, let's look at Nigeria as a product first. And we cannot understand the product Nigeria unless we understand what the product is and how people attack products. Unfortunately, we are in a time where how good your product is or how best your product is does not determine the speed at which or the frequency at which people will go to buy your products. Now we are living in a world where people don't buy product. People buy people. And at the worst case scenario, people buy perception. In short, there is even a saying, it's cliche, you can't judge a book by the cover. So we have a lot of people who spend more money on the cover of their books, because if a cover is what it will take you to buy the book, then I will spend my budget on the cover. So if Nigeria is a product, what is our cover looking like? Unfortunately, if I said we are not looking good, it's an understatement. We are looking super terrible. And we are looking super terrible because in most cases, you find people who, they take their time, to work on the product. But even if the product is not so good or meh, they spend money on the packaging. And because of that, people rush for the product. Now, this is a country, right? We have people that are doing well, from the individualistic level to the MSME level to the SME level to the private sector level to even the let's say the nationalistic, but in quotes, not necessarily the country, because it's painful, right? To the representative level, and this is what I mean. A Davido, for example, a Burna Boy, for example, you rather associate yourself with Burna Boy than associate yourself with Nigeria. And I say that with all form of humility, if you get what I mean.
Okay, so not to interrupt you, I need us to sort of attack the issues. So what are those negative factors that has affected our product, that has affected our brand as Nigeria? So is it politics? What exactly are the issues? Let's list it out, and then let's see if we can prefer solutions in terms of rebranding. What can we do better? So let's start with the negative factors.
I wouldn't want us to say rebranding, because if I say rebranding, it's almost like I'm just creating another opportunity for one big man somewhere to chop money.
Okay.
And they do it every time. You know, painting our passport from green to yellow will not change how terrible I feel when I'm at another country's border and the immigration tells me to bring it out. The color won't do anything. And rebranding as a word has been so overused that it has now lost the respect that it deserves. So, for example, let's just look at how very diverse and how misaligned who we say we are and what the people see us as, or who people see how it's like. For example, we are the giant of Africa, right? We call ourselves the giant of Africa. I don't have to say what we look like right now. So a Davido can be seen as someone like me can even be seen as a bigger giant than Nigeria. And I'm saying that with all form of humility, of course. We say we are bold. How do we feel when they tell us to bring out our passport? We say we are happy to go home. When we are outside the country and it's time to go home, we are very excited. But when you get to the first point where you are welcomed, the airport, how do you feel? Nigeria is filled with happy people and everything like that. When you check online, just Google Nigeria. Will you see anything that looks like happiness? Right? And when you look at Nigerians, you see a lot of individuals leading outside this world and even, outside this country and even within the country. But when you look at the country itself, what is the picture of leadership? I don't know if you get what I mean. Then even in the business, sphere, the MSMEs, the SMEs, you see how somebody is, in short, you are Hero Daniels, right? What's your native name?
Hero Ifeanyi Chukwu.
Okay,
Daniel.
so let me give you two headlines and then you can pitch it side by side. Hero Ifeanyi Chukwu Daniels. His palm wine business now becomes a $1 million business in Singapore. That's one headline. Another headline, Hero Daniels Ifeanyi Chukwu. His palm wine business becomes a $1 million business somewhere in Nigeria. The picture of one is finer than the other. Once he's in Singapore, you become, pun intended, a hero. But in Nigeria, somebody will just be like, this guy don't sabi person. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so you are talking about underlying issues such as the governance, like how good governance, issues of corruption, issues of nepotism, because you just mentioned that, if you succeed, they'll say, it's because you know somebody. Issues of transparency. So are those the negative factors that have sort of giving Nigeria its negative image? Because I really want us to now get to the solution.
Amazing. I wouldn't want us to beat corruption with the worst stick ever, because that is not really the problem.
So what is really the problem?
There are people who are doing not as good as us, but they are positioning themselves well. There are countries, even the whole China of this world, the Americans of this world, the Singapores of this world. If you look at their news and you really want to be critical, you will see some levels of corruption that we have here. But they have decided that they want to look good. Let me give you an example. For example, the country wasn't really the best place to be in terms of happiness, in terms of temperature. And when I say temperature, I mean cool or hot. And when someone is hot, he's angry, right? So we're not really the coolest, set of people when the national anthem was changed, right? Even though people were really angry, even though it might come with a lot of good intention, don't get me wrong. I looked at the lyrics. I looked at the wordings. I actually prefer the old one that was brought back than the one that we currently have. But people, it came with a lot of bad taste simply because it was just dumped. There was no optics involved. Just imagine, a creative director of the masses, right? Good. Imagine if lines or sentences or words of this anthem were dropped in several local government areas somewhere in this country. Like you have Nigeria, we hail these, dropped in somewhere in Brimingwari in Kaduna, maybe etched on the back of a tree or, on a sign somewhere. And then you ask different people, find these stanzas. And if you find a stanza and we find out it's the original stanza that you found, sentence that you found, we are going to give you probably a piece of land in Abuja. Right? A lot of people will start going on the hunt. Everybody will start looking for the verse. Don't forget, we are not happy that we are changing it, right? But there's an activity, and people start finding it, and people begin to win things. What we have done is that we have bypassed that emotion
And created excitement.
Yeah. So you don't have to have people go online to look for the lyrics because of the activation, because people are looking for places. You are using an indirect and subliminal means to put these verses in people's mind. Another example, imagine sometimes like Independence Day, for example. This is a country where the best we can do is maybe we sing a song with maybe most of the politicians, or we do a commercial with somebody wearing, black and white, the whole Idoma, somebody wearing Isiagu, somebody wearing, Ashoke. That's what we have always been doing. Imagine, and compare that with what content creators create on Independence Day. Imagine the country championing what their fellow content creators have created. Imagine the country saying, this time it is you who will be creating our content for us, and we want the country to create it, right? Now, compare that again with what happens when Nigerians are hustling or they are trying to get something done. You will not see any form of government body backing that person. But if the person wins, they want to repost it or they want to snap a picture with the person.
Yeah. It happened with Hilda Bassi, yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And it's so this is the problem, and this is where people get it wrong. We can't wait till when we are perfect before we begin to concern ourselves of how we look perfect.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you this at this point. As a brand specialist, imagine Nigeria as a company that you're running. What can we do moving forward?
What we can do moving forward is that we need to pay attention to other things aside the metric tons and our foreign reserves is this, because yes, I know it really matters, because at the end of the day the people at the grassroots, they will feel it, right? But when you begin to look at the aesthetical picture, the optics, how I look, I might be thinking something very bad in me right now, but a very nice person painted me powder. Why? Because it's important I look good for the camera. We need to look good for the camera. A country like, please excuse me for using America, a country like America, it wasn't a fluke. When we were little and we discovered that, wait, why is it that everybody that comes to save a bad guy in a movie is always an American? Superman is an American. Sorry, they said it's not from, it's from space, but the color on his body is from the American flag. Captain America is that, sorry, there's even America in the name. Look at the Avengers. Little by little, you start thinking, I would rather have an American come to save me than have my own country.
So it's subconscious.
It's subconscious, and it's on multiple levels. See what I spoke about regarding the issue of the national anthem and the singing. I did not say we should change the anthem. I did not say they should not put it out. I did not say we should keep the old one. I just said the aesthetic doctrine. I'm by career, I'm a brand person. And by intention, I'm a perception designer, because it is important to design what we look like. You cannot fall into the basket of, oh, he's a good guy. You can't fall there. You design it.
Now, I can fully understand what you're saying, because that's why everybody's talking about the American elections that was just concluded. Over here, when we're doing the protest, a lot of people were calling out to foreign countries, please come save us. So it has become part of our subconscious to think that the West has it all.
Brilliant.
Now, do you think the media is also playing a role in this? Because if an American of Nigerian descent achieves something, they are going to call him an American. They won't even mention Nigeria. But if he commits fraud, even if he was born in the US, raised in the US, they will say Nigerian scammer. The Western media, they are so quick to put a tag on not just Nigeria, a lot of African countries. If there's a crisis, if there's hunger, the bodies will come, film hungry children, and that's the image, they put out there. So what can we do using our own media? How can we empower our own media? Because in terms of money, budgeting, the Western media has more. Penetration, control of social media. I don't even think there's any app that is being developed in Africa that is global. All the apps are American apps. So what can we do as Nigeria, as Africa, to sort of boost and combat even the Western media that is putting the negative stereotype on us?
First of all, let me say that's an amazing question. And I'm not saying it from a political, you have a good question and I'm trying to figure out the answer. You asked a beautiful question. Two questions, in fact. First, from the media point of view, What do we do as a media, as from the media houses, you know, the press, the newspapers, the even content creators these days, right? Then secondly, as a country, as a collective, the first one, the media side, let me answer it this way. The highest quality score, and I might not want to be too clinical and scientific here, but you discover that what Punch says holds more water than what anybody says in the country. And that's why when you Google Nigeria, most of the pictures you see are kidnappings, explosions, this one did one, this one. You will hardly find the good news. Why? Because people like the big media houses, I don't want to call their names. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. You know, they are quick to publish those negative news. However, I think sometimes in January, I was in the UK, right? I went for a program. And then somebody, my in-law's father was telling me that bad things happen here. There is a neighborhood not too far from here. Terrible things happen there. Trust me, it's dark there. But the news and media dare not let it get out because it will affect their optics. I'm not saying we should bury things that are happening, please. I'm just saying if you can't bury the bad, shine light on the good. On the other hand, I know that you'll be like, oh, good news does not make money.
I get it, and I think in fact, we are out of time. We barely have 60 seconds left, and I need you to use the 60 seconds wisely. So, yes, we've concluded on the fact that we need to brand Nigeria. So how do you now carry Nigerians along in the process of branding in terms of the activities you mentioned earlier? Just 60 seconds. Give us ideas. Okay, brilliant. The first idea I'll give is whatever initiative there is that is about to go out, you can select and prioritize. This is the one that is most fun, that the citizens and the content creators and the people and Nigerians, you know, will like. You know, how can we make them participate in this? So in other words, don't say we are making another new road. You can call people. What does this mean to you? If you get what I mean. And even in a different way, you can even ask people that today is not going to be a media house. Sorry, I'm sorry to say that because I'm in a media house right now. It's not going to be a media house that is going to show the launch of this road. It's going to be regular people that are going to show the launch of this road. And by the time you see more mobile phones than more major big camera, your news becomes more believable. All right, thank you very much. We can have both the big cameras and the mobile phones. Yes. Don't worry, we don't want to get out of jobs there. I usually say my player, then thank you. Thank you very much. Rubbin Minds continues after this break. Stay with us. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show it. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were talking about Project Nigeria. You know, Nigeria as a brand, Nigeria as a company, and how we can better our brand, you know, not just for us, but also for the rest of the world. And now it is time for us to talk about one area that Nigerians have been showing up and showing out. I was in India in 2023, the Z Senior Awards. I was hosting the red carpet, and a young man walked up to me just because I was black. You know, he started singing, "Baby, calm down, calm down." That was actually Rema's song. Rema's song was the biggest song in India as of 2023. And just having the black skin, you know, it was able, the young man was able to identify me as a black person. And, you know, luckily for him, he identified me as a Nigerian. 7 Nigerian Afrobeats artists have been nominated for the Grammys. So I want to talk about from Nigeria to the Grammys, the global rise of Nigerian music. With me in the studio is Mo Fame, a media personality. Welcome to the program. Thank you indeed, Hero. Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you too. Yeah. Also joining me virtually is I like to call him the Future Africa Awards nominated media personality, Shea Banks. How you doing, brother? All right. What is the emotional space of Nigerians, knowing fully well that we have 7 Grammy-nominated artists for the recent Grammys? What is the mood of people? Shaya?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How do you think Nigerians are feeling with regards to the nominations from the Grammys?
I think a lot of Nigerians are really excited. It just sort of symbolizes that we have a certain level of global dominance when it comes to African music and Afrobeats as a whole. It also shows that we are more diverse and versatile as a community, and it just symbolizes that we are definitely going to be the future of African music. So yeah, we're excited for that.
I like that, the future of African music. I would like to think the future of global music, because the way it's going and the way a lot of non-Afrobeats artists are jumping on the Afrobeats trend, I think we're really going on that global level. I'm going to speak with you. Let's speak in details more, Fame. We've seen Nigerian artists like Thames being nominated for the R&B category that is not necessarily secluded to just Afrobeat artists. So there's the Best African Music category, and then she, as a Nigerian artist, is being nominated for a global category. What does that mean for us?
It's exciting, really. I think that Nigerian music, we have metamorphosed from a caterpillar to a butterfly now, and it's exciting to see. I can say that in recent years, we've had the most transformative cultural shifts across board in terms of music. You know, started off from the likes of King Sunny Ade being nominated in '84, to Babatunde Olatunji, to the Kutis, Femi Kuti, Shehu Kuti, to Sir Victor Waifo winning the first gold disc in Africa, down to the era that midwifed the current Afrobeats, the Remedies, Plantation Boys, back to Pretty Busy Boys, Junior and Pretty. We've had a lot of artists, and we've grown. We've seen us grow, and to see Thames being nominated in the Best R&B category that is not cultured and defined to the Africa terrain is amazing to see. I was so excited when I saw that. It means that we're doing something right. And hopefully they don't take Afrobeats away from us in little or no time.
Now, that is a very important conversation to have, because not just in terms of the sound, we're also talking about in terms of the business structure.
Absolutely.
Because there has been conversation around where the money is going to, but we're going to hold on that conversation. Let's talk about what the secret sauce has been. Shaya, what do you think has contributed to this rise in the global dominance of Afrobeats? What are we doing right? And how can we maybe sort of apply it to other sectors apart from music?
So I think what we've been able to get right is the utilization of the digital platforms and social media. I think we've seen a significant rise, not just locally, but internationally, with independent artists getting on Spotify, getting the most streams on Spotify. I mean, Shabuzi is doing the most as an independent artist signed to Empire internationally. There's so many artists that blew off TikTok. And as Nigerians, we are quite shameless. You know, we can just get on social media, do what we do on TikTok, and, you know, release whatever we release without overthinking what the results could be and what the outcome of the results definitely could become. And just do what we do. We're very confident people. And we just know that once we put it out, you know, if they like it, it's good. If they don't like it, we keep working. And we just know how to stay consistent. I think the social media has really helped us. You know, the digital platforms have really done a good job. And our consistency and confidence has really contributed significantly to that as well.
And I absolutely agree. Now, let's now hop onto the conversation that MoFame really started, where the money is going. Now, we've seen issues where an artist that belongs to a 100% owned, Nigerian-owned music label is being signed by a Universal Music. You know, these bigger labels come and then they either co-sign or sometimes they even totally lift off the artist. And then the revenues being generated, all of the economies that are boosted, it's going towards the West as opposed to really coming back to Africa. What are your thoughts on that, and what can we do?
You know, I think that's why we need to develop our structure. Our structure needs to be more independent. It needs to be more assertive. Our structure needs to be more coherent. We are happy that these universal labels, these international labels are coming in to snap up our artists, sometimes on a full deal, sometimes on a management contract and everything. We're quite excited, but for me, it has a disadvantage. The monies and everything, most of the monies are going back to the West. Sooner than later, if we don't hold on to our structure and don't hold on to have Afrobeats as ours and solely ours, we'll see the emergence of a different story and a different stride. It happened with reggae. It happened with dancehall reggaeton when all of a sudden now you're seeing the West owning up reggae, and you see a reggae category in the Grammys today, you see it's dominated by white people. No disrespect, I'm not hating, I'm just saying that we have to hold on to Afrobeats, ensure that our structure is solid. We are more independent than we are now if we are to move forward.
All right, so we're going to talk about two extra things. Some artists that we feel are a bit underrated and deserve a Grammy. But before we talk about that, let's speak about the specific nominations. So Yemi Alade, I believe, I don't know if it's her first nomination, Shea. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Yemi Alade's first Grammy nomination. So. Yeah. And then, of course, we have the regulars, Davido, Wizkid, Burna Boy, Ashake. I'm missing out some names right now. There has been a conversation on social media. People are beginning to compare female artists. They're like, okay, Yemi Alade, even though that there are certain songs that we don't even know, she got a Grammy before Tiwa Savage, and you know, putting these female acts together against each other. What are your thoughts on Yemi Alade's nomination?
I think it's long overdue. I think it's well deserved. I think she's one of the artists who was nominated this year that really symbolizes and represents what it means to be an African musician. I think, no disrespect to every other artist, but I think she has really stuck with what she stood for the longest. And if you can check the facts, it's right there, you know. I think they embrace her more internationally because they know that once they come to her, they can come to her for undiluted African music. And she's always been consistent, you know, every year in and out, dropping albums, you know, making quality music. I think she's just one of those artists that really deserves what she gets. And to be honest, there's nothing really wrong with, you know, the comparisons. I know some of them have to, you know, do with a lot of this person has swag or not. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's very unnecessary, right? Tiwa Savage is a queen, every right. She's an African bad girl. She's done everything to promote the culture, just as much as Thames and Ira Star are doing to promote the culture. The influence of alcohol, you know, is getting that record globally right now, and I think that Yemi Alade is just playing her role as well, and just her time. She's getting what she's getting right now.
Thank you, Shea Banks. We're almost out of time, so real quick, I need you to name drop. Please don't be political about this. Who do you think really deserves a Grammy nomination?
That wasn't nominated.
That wasn't nominated. Just give me a name.
The Grammys do have their yardstick and their criteria,
just
but
give me a name.
Kiss Daniel should have had a shot.
Kiss Daniel should have been nominated for the Grammys. Fantastic. And then final question. We have exactly 60 seconds for this question. Why don't we give as much hype and relevance to our indigenous award shows like the Headies, you know, Sound City MVP? How can we push that kind of Grammy energy towards our indigenous shows?
I think it's what Fela would call colonial mentality. It's taking place in the Afrobeats industry as we speak. We are not confident about ours, or not until somebody from the West comes and solidify or certify or approve of it and all of that. I think that's what's currently obtainable. If we're able to build, like I did say, it's part of building and structure. If we're able to build value and understand that ours is more better, then we'd appreciate it more.
Thank you very much for coming on the program. Shea, thank you also for coming on the program. It's been an amazing time right here on Rubbin Minds. And yes, we're very excited for the Grammys, but please remember our indigenous award ceremonies. We're super proud of them, and we should encourage them and grow our music economy in this country. My name is Hero Daniels. Until next time, it's bye.